Gamers, gals, my non-binary pals. You just saw YCS Minneapolis, one of the goofiest events of the year in terms of feature matches. And I want to share with you in today's Smarter with Stevie YCS Minneapolis breakdown. Big thanks to Zeros and Arishel for helping out with the research and development part of this video. Very, very pog people. So let's talk about deck expectations. So tier limit, although it kind of flopped at Utrecht due to people playing stuff like Runic Sprite, which had a really good matchup against it, a lot of oversighting. It got a ton of support in Darkwing Blast, specifically in tier limit Lulucaros. Tier limit Scream was pretty nutty, if I'm being honest. Tier limit's Grief was being basically just Foolish Burial. Who would have guessed that that card is also good? Tier limit's definitely got a huge power spike. The Runic cards are expected to do pretty good. Again, Runic has a really good matchup just versus the whole board, primarily just because it has a great application versus everything. Just the whole entire resource loop is absolutely insane. And Pure Sprite is probably a lot more playable now thanks to the introduction of Sprite Sprint and Double Cross, and it's probably much more playable compared to Pure Sprite before, thanks to now having a 1-2 card Toad Elf setups. It basically is doing what it used to do, but now without having to play Road and Toad, I guess. Next, we have tech expectations. The Bystials, they're probably pretty good. They're mainly just DD Crows with upside. They summon a guy, they have additional floating effects, like they're all crazy. Kashira Fenrir, definitely a super duper hyped card. It's a free special, it searches itself, and it has interrupts, and it's much more similar to Pancratops than Alpha, the Master of Beasts, ever was. And I think that a lot of people were thinking that this card was going to go hard. And additionally, auto-win board breakers like Evenly, Lava Golem, and Sphere Mode, as we mentioned last time, they're seeing a lot more play, and will likely to do so because they have great matchups versus Sprite and Tier Limit. Let's look at the deck breakdown. So top 32 didn't really meet our expectations. Runic Sprite was expected to be the best deck, but here we can see that Tier Limit is back on top with an over 50% representation. Sprite's taken up 30%, and then we have like Thunder Dragon, Exo Sister, Dragon Link, and like Blunder. So what really happened? What happened here? This is the first place deck list. You can kind of see that it gets a little goofy. This was Christopher LeBlanc's Tier Limit Sprite, and we can honestly kind of see that there's a lot of stuff going on. We've got the Nightmare Corruptor Ibly as a funny lock versus Tier Limit because it forces them to link summoning. We've got a bunch of board breakers like in Triple Tactics, Super Polymerization. We've got a bunch of sided Bystial cards. You know, pretty standard list so far. I can understand why. What the fuck is this list though? What is this list? 12 Bystials in the main deck. Branded Beast. Melody of Awakening Dragon. Oh my god, this list is so based. And then we have Vlad playing a pretty funny card. We also have the Kurikara Dim Incarnate, we have the Rainbow Bridge, Super Poly, we also have the Scareclaw engine. Who would have guessed that kind of just having a guy to pop other guys in Tier Limit is pretty good. Emerald Turtle and Rainbow Bridge of Salvation is seeing a lot more play because if you mill Rainbow Bridge of Salvation, you can banish it from your graveyard to add a Crystal Beast monster and a field spell from your deck to your hand. And you add either the Scareclaw field spell or the Primeval Planet because, again, they're your engine's field spells. And you can add the turtle because it's a water aqua, which is very funny. What exactly changed? So these are the three main things that came into the format. You have Tier Limit taking up a huge part of the graph again, an over 50% top cut rate. And it turns out that Rulukalos kind of turned out to be a little gamer. Rulukalos was pretty good. Who would have guessed that like Solemn Warning, the monster that triggers your tears, is like, you know, broken. It's mainly just Rulukalos and Scream just being, ah yes, today I will mill 11. Sprite is good enough. It's a good enough deck to see play again. As a pure variant specifically, it had a 30% top cut representation, and again, 1-2 card Elf plus Toad setups turns out to be enough in this current format, mainly because of Sprite Sprint. Additionally, it turns out there's a ton of non-engine stuff that the deck can do now, whether it's playing a bunch of hand traps or playing like Runic cards if you still want to do that, or still pushing adventure packages. Definitely Sprite is back into serious meta contention before being like, you know, kind of bad to being like really good because it had like a really specific tier matchup, and now it's like it's settled in there. Oh my god, the Bystials are fucking cracked. Sometimes you could just activate a Bystial and you will just win on the spot. The Bystials are honestly just cracked beyond imagination. Additional deck successes, we have Blunder. Who would have guessed that Barrier Statue and Dimension Shifter are good? It also had a good matchup versus like tech cards that were good against the vast majority of the format because those cards are 90% dead, specifically like the Bystials, because Omega Lol, I don't care about the graveyard. I sure hope that Blunder can out a Fenrir and doesn't misplay in the finals, you know? Brandon is starting to see some sort of appearance. You've got the Cartesia line, you can dump Lubellion, you can make Barone. Additionally, people are mainly, for the most part, off of Ash Blossom, so they can ensure the safety of their setup combos far more safely. So you're no longer worried about Ash Blossom on Brandon Fusion like you lose the game. So let's talk about the funny spice. Let's talk about the good techs of the format. Super Polymerization was really, really good. It's good going first, it's good going second, because every single deck has to play into Super Poly this format. Here, especially, because Rulukalos and Dweller getting souped up into a Mud Dragon is kind of just like your best end board, but also the easiest way to eat a fat L. Hand traps are seeing a much bigger resurgence overall. We have Infinite Impermanence and Effect Veiler making huge splashes into specifically Sprite, because Sprite's deciding to go more of a hand trap route, deciding to play more non-engine, and occasionally Ash Blossom. And let's talk about some of the flops of this event. Draco Slayers was a deck that Triff definitely hyped up a lot. It had 2 card combos to set up really, really crazy boards, but it's really an all or nothing combo deck with no follow-up whatsoever. So if anything goes on, you're basically screwed. Again, the decks that win YCSs aren't like super crazy combo decks that like kill you on turn 1 with like their 50 negates. They're primarily decks that can play out multiple strong turns consistently over the course of 15, 16, 17 rounds, you know? Kashura Fenrir is actually not that amazing. It's not that it's a bad card. There's just like a lot of alternatives. There are a lot of more specialized and much more impactful answers to boards outside of a Kashura Fenrir. And I don't think Fenrir is like a bad card. I just think that in this specific format, having a more generic answer isn't as good as playing more of an auto-win card. Additionally, it also has conflictions with the Bestials, because if you're going second, you can't actually special summon Fenrir if you've activated a Bestial, because the Bestials special summon themselves, and Fenrir needs an empty board. And additionally, Runic Sprite isn't really that great. It's not that Runic Sprite became worse, it's more that it just didn't get better, and a lot of other things got much, much better due to everything else outpacing it, thanks to Darkwing Blast, and unfortunately because it didn't really get any new tools outside of exactly Sprint, but people would have rather just played pure Sprite. Let's look at some goofy cards. Night Sword Serpent is a really, really funny mill card. Basically, if you send it to the graveyard by card effect, you can special summon it, but it's banished when it leaves the field. You would basically play this in Tier Limit as a, you know, foolish send or whatever, to make Bahamut Shark with Rhino Heart, which is very, very funny. Chaos Daedalus was an auto-win card versus Runic. You guys saw it in the Thunder Dragon deck list, but turns out if the Runic cards can't, you know, target your cards, you kind of win on the spot. So if you just played Chaos Daedalus in Thunder Dragon and you went against like 12 Runic Sprite players, guess what? You were coming out on top. Let's just say that. We have High Rate Draw. Yes, this was in fact played by fucking Jabrel and the gang. It was a very funny way to out Mystic Mine and gain advantage in the process. If you don't know what High Rate Draw does, basically you destroy 2 or more monsters you control, and for every 2 monsters you destroy, you draw a card, which is terrible, but it's really funny because you would just nuke your board and then your opponent's Mystic Mine would just out itself. And again, some guy playing Tier Limit played Scattershot as a time card. Comedy! So overall event takeaways. Tier Limit is the best deck now, again, thanks to Rukalos and the Bestials, and it's only going to get better thanks to the Ishizu support and Magnificent Maidens. Sprite Pure is definitely back, and the gap between Runic and Pure Sprite has been closed, and Pure Sprite honestly kind of exceeds it, and allows for 1 to 2 card setups and 2 Alpha setups. You get the idea. Runic wasn't really able to convert due to player prep and a lack of support in Darkwing Blast. Will likely probably die out or just be seen as a less optimal version of Pure Sprite or whatever. Bestials, broken beyond imagination. Who would have guessed? Again, DD Crow of Upside. It's good! Rogue decks. Rogue decks are honestly becoming more and more forced out of the metagame. Decks without auto-win buttons like Fluanderies and Exorcistor's Barrier Statues and Shifters, they are no longer viable in any capacity. Mathmech and anything else honestly can't really seriously compete unless they are playing some sort of auto-win card. Yeah, that's just the reality of it. Speaking of auto-win cards, turns out with Sprite and Tier being absolutely unforgiving to play into, auto-win cards like Lava Golem, Sphere Mode, Evenly, and Dimension Shifter are absolutely necessary. If you want to play in this format, unfortunately you kind of either have to be playing a goofy-ass Floodgate or an auto-win board breaker card. Something like, again, Evenly, Lava Golem, blah, 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 blah. You get the idea. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Twitch.tv/Stevie Blunder if you want to catch these segments live. We're partnered now. Pog. Twitter.com/Stevie Blunder __ if you want to follow me for my shit takes. YouTube.com/C/Stevie Blunder Real if you want to watch these segments on YouTube, I guess. And stevieblunder.com if you want to hire me. Evil geniuses. I sent in my internship application. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys for watching.